This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash Vasugi and Mikey Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mikey Stiller, joined by my co-host, Arash Vasugi, and we're thrilled to be back with you for another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about thinking, and you might be wondering, okay, what about thinking are we going to be talking about? You know, our mentor used to always say, mental activity does not constitute thinking. And it took me a long time to realize what he was saying there. But whenever you really understand thinking, things start to change pretty quickly. So, Araj, let's get into this. You're actually the one that wanted to do an episode on thinking today. Why do you want to do that?
Well, I want to get everyone to think like an elite performer. And if we understood how important our thoughts are, and we had a deep understanding of what they actually create, we'd be very careful about our environment, about what we're thinking on a daily basis, and how much it's either creating our fortune or causing our lack and limitation. And thought is the cause of everything. A lot of people will come to me and I'll ask them a question when I'm coaching them, and I'll say, well, what do you think's holding you back? They say money. And I say, money's never holding you back. Money is always the effect, not the cause. It's your beliefs around money. It's your thinking patterns. And so we want to hold ourselves to a standard that we think what we want, whenever we want, automatically at a high level that is in harmony with the type of life we want to live. So if you look at this, everything comes down to how you think. Like, I love the quote by Solomon. He says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. But a lot of people are not understanding how much they're costing themselves in health, well-being, financial prosperity by thinking about what they don't want. In order to demonstrate true prosperity in your life, you must get rid of what you don't want, and those are thinking patterns. And you must open the space for what you do want. And you'll see somebody create a massive quantum leap once they get properly mentored and they're taught how to think. And it's so interesting. It sounds so funny, right? Teaching how to think. Mm-hmm. But you have to learn how to think in a certain way. You want to think from abundance. You never want to get emotionally involved with what you don't want. I know that's a high standard, but that's what greatness is. That's what excellence is. We've got to get to a point where we never tolerate poor performance in our thinking, not just in our results, because the results are the effect of our thinking that creates the actions that will create the type of life we want to live.
You know, Raj, I think it's easier to identify whenever someone else is thinking out of alignment from you. You'll be having a conversation. You'll feels like we're speaking a different language, like we are not on the same page. But sometimes whenever we're looking at our own thinking, we're not looking at it objectively. And so it's harder for us to see where our thinking needs to change. What are your insights there?
Well, I'll tell you what I do. It's a simple process to bullet myself in the morning. And this is before I even start my morning routine. Is number one, I always tell myself, today I have to conquer myself. My biggest battle is not in the outside world. It's me versus me. So I have to conquer myself. So I got to be really locked in on accepting and rejecting ideas. Number two, I have to have a goal that inspires me. If I don't have a goal that inspires me, there's no reason to discipline my thinking. So I have to have a goal that I want more than anything else in this world. And I've got to already have that commitment. Number three, the most important conversations I have throughout the day are with myself. That's when I can find out, am I sending out double-binding messages to myself? Am I really listening to what I'm putting out? Because it will allow me to see where my thinking patterns are and where my behaviors are going. And I also have to understand my biggest obstacle throughout the day is in my present results. So I don't want my present results driving what I'm doing. I used to live that way. It was a terrible way to live. And when I made such a dramatic change, I did the deep internal work to change my thinking. And I eventually changed my program, changed my identity, changed my standards, which we've talked about. And that's what we teach people how to do. But you have to think in a certain way. And we have to understand we become what we think about all day long. And it's an automatic pattern. It is an automatic pattern. People are listening to this. And if you're not conscious of this, I promise you, they probably think they're better thinkers than they are. If they actually listen to themselves, they'd be like, lack, double binding message, double binding message. It's like somebody wanting to get super healthy. Yet they'll say in the beginning, no, I eat pretty good. Then a nutritionist will say, I want you to create a food log for a week. And they had no idea how much more than they were eating than what they thought. It's the same with our thinking patterns. And we have to understand our goal is a price. That price is being in alignment with thinking, feeling, and acting in that certain way. I always say everything starts with the seed. The seed is the goal. And we want to plant our disciplines, thinking, our actions, thinking, our standards, thinking. And that's what creates all of these. And when you do, you're gonna harvest the rewards, which are world-class results.
Raj, whenever you think about any problem that we have, any dissatisfaction that we have, anywhere that we may be stuck, and its origination is in thought, are there two forms of the problem with thought? One would be not thinking, and the other would be automatic, like poor automatic thinking.
Well, most people are not thinking at all. That's what poor automatic thinking is. That person's just reacting, not thinking. You want to burn this idea in your mind that old ideas, so we could reverse it and say old ideas and thinking pattern will not create new conditions. So I know when your automatic thinking is excellent, it serves you so significantly. But I want you to think of a time where you get an adversity and you go right to the problem instead of right to the solution. That's part of your philosophy. So we want to really bulletproof our thinking and always think from the goal. When you learn to control the flow of your thinking, because within a second, all day long, we're getting thought energy coming through us, and we want to think and plan. See, every time your desire is for something greater than you have right now, the old program and thinking patterns are gonna automatically come in. But when you mix discipline in your thinking and you say, I am going to conquer myself today, I'm only going to think in a certain way, that certain way is in alignment with what I want, that's when you're going to change the game over 30, 60, 90 days.
And where can you identify like which areas of your thinking need to be upgraded? So if you're going through your day and you're thinking, okay, I really want to achieve this goal, and you're looking at the outside circumstances saying, I'm not there yet, and it's giving you more proof that you're not there, what would be the opposite of that to improve your thinking?
Well, when you master this, you're already there. So you never let the outside control you. So there's the gap right there. When we're letting the outside control us, we're letting the outside dictate our identity. We're letting the outside dictate our worth. And we're letting the outside dictate our moods. So the goal, the first premise, the goal is already here. Creation's already finished. Now, we want to use the outside. It's not that I don't look at the outside. You look at the outside as leverage, because if something is continually showing up that it's not going in your way, that means there's a problem on the inside. So you've got to go in. If it happens once, you let it go. There's not enough proof. The outside isn't giving you enough evidence, but if something keeps showing up, and if you just look at your moods, are you up and down? Your emotional state is up and down because you're up and down on the inside. And that's why we don't get what we want. We get what we believe we're capable of. And belief comes with expectation. And expectation controls our behaviors. The problem is most people are expecting what they don't want. And the only way you can get unstuck is by discipline. You have to give yourself a command and think in a certain way. You have to accept the ideas that you want in your life. Most people are studying this very surface. They study themselves on a surface level. You've got to go deep and listen to yourself. And when you do that, you're going to uncover and you're going to propel yourself forward when you make the adjustments.
Okay, I probably should have started with this, but I want to hear your answer. So, what is the definition of thinking to you? Is it the origination of thought or something else?
To me, thinking is everything I do is from the goal. So
Okay.
every thought is from the goal. Every attitude is from the goal. Every discipline is from the goal. That is thinking. Every standard is from the goal. Because go back to we become what we think about all day long. Earl Nightingale said that. And there's nothing more accurate to it. You watch somebody who wakes up and is like, this is going to be the best freaking day. Like, watch how their day aligns. And it's not just because their day aligns, that's their expectation. But they are going to bulletproof themselves. Or you watch somebody who's really winning on the outside. Even though they might not know why they're winning, they're thinking because they have momentum working in their favor. But just as they're winning, if they're losing, they're using it against them. That's why we got to get neutral. And neutral is we're never too high or too low. So you'll always know when you're thinking in a certain way where everything is coming from your desire. Desire, Catherine Ponder has a great quote. I love this quote. She says, desire is God tapping at the door of your mind, trying to give you greater good. That's what desire is.
Say it again. I love that.
She says, desire is God tapping at the door of your mind, trying to give you greater good. That's what desire is. Because desire, you get your desire in your subconscious mind, it goes to your conscious mind, and you accept it, and you internalize it, and brings it back to your subconscious mind. And let's understand this. You cannot get results beyond your current level of thinking. Like if we look at all of our results, you look at my results, it's a direct reflection of my thinking. And what we've got to get to a point is we got to get the ego completely out of the way. So if you don't like the results in your life right now, we got to get explicitly honest with ourselves. We don't put ourselves down. We give ourselves grace, not excuses. But if we don't change our subjective conditioning, then nothing is going to change on the outside.
Raj, so if you have thinking, and we talk a lot on this podcast about repetition, and that is extremely important, especially as it comes to thinking. You said your definition of thinking is everything coming from the goal. Is that done through repetition, which drives feeling or drives action, or where next?
Well, everything starts with a goal. If we don't have a goal, there's no reason to get away from automatic thinking patterns to build excellent automatic thinking patterns. So everything is driven from the goal. So everything, how you think, feel, and act is driven from what you want. And then we want to turn the want into a desire where it's in that knowing state. A lot of people will listen to podcasts, they'll read books, they'll go on YouTube, they'll go to seminars, but do they really understand it? And you'll know how well you understand it by looking at your results. You can know something intellectually and not know it. You have to get it on the subjective level where your programming is, because our programming dictates what we attract in our life. It alters our vibration dictates what we attract. When it's a part of your programming, you will create the results effortlessly in your life. But the prequel to all this is thinking. But if you go under the hood of thinking, the prequel to thinking is knowing what you want and paying the price. That price is discipline.
So good. I love that because you often talk about that with our clients. You'll say, are you willing to pay the price? And whenever you say that, almost everybody automatically thinks monetary price. That is the smallest price there is to pay with any of your goals, I feel like. My next question is, this started out as one of your core values and then has been adopted by our company, which is you never check a box. You never do something just to check a box, just to get it done. But you get into the spirit of it. How do you apply that specifically to thinking?
Well, you've got to do the real intentional work. And that's how you apply it with thinking. I want everyone to get to a place where everything you do is purposeful. When you're with your kids, it's purposeful. It becomes a dominant part of everything you're doing. Like everything I do is purposeful now. If I'm going with my friends or my family playing golf, it's purposeful. Everything I want to do is purposeful, but we have to have fun in the process. We have to let go. We have to let go. And too many people are wanting the results so bad that they're chasing them and they're holding on to their old self. We've got to let go completely. And when you let go, think about a time you were just all in and it was so effortless. All in is not hard work. It's actually creates easy work when you're all in because all your energy is on that all in, whatever that is. And whatever our energy is on, it's like a laser. With such focus, it expands and grows, and then you're going to get all the right things in your mind of what you need to do for the fulfillment of your goal.
Mm-hmm. When you look for role models in your life, look for mentors in your life, someone that you look up to or admire, is thinking ever something that you look at, like you think, wow, I really like the way that they think, or I like the way that they reframe things. Is that something that you look at in other people?
That's the only thing I look at. That's the only thing I look at. And I always ask myself, would I want to switch spots with them? Like, do I admire how they're living? But I'm always learning from people who think at a very high level, because you can always learn from anyone. Like I can learn from people who are not as high as me and learn something from the way they're thinking. Not in a bad way, but you can learn from people who are winning and people who are losing. But in mentors, the only thing I look for is how they're thinking. Are their thinking aligned with where I want to go? And that's what I'm always looking at. But thinking, this is like, people will listen to this and they'll be like, yeah, thinking. But thinking based on appearance is not thinking at all. Thinking based on truth is thinking, and it's the hardest work in the world. That was from Wallace Wattles in one of my favorite books, The Science of Getting Rich. Most people are thinking based on appearances. They think that's thinking. That's what Bob was telling us when you introed this. That's mental activity. That's just reacting. Thinking is holding the truth regardless of the appearances. This is where we've got to get so good at developing our higher faculties, our will, our perception, our memory, our intuition, our reasoning, and our imagination. And we've got to put our five senses in a lockbox. We should not be making decisions from our five senses, yet people who think they're thinking, they're rationalizing. That's not thinking. That's just coming from the program. You want to think from the fifth dimensional world, not from third dimension, what we see, feel, hear, taste, and touch. Creation starts in the fifth dimension. So you want to already go and think from your goal already assumed, the life already where you want to be. What would you experience? But we've got to get really good. I can't emphasize this more. We've got to get really good in our deliberate practice of accepting and rejecting ideas, on picking one of those faculties and working at them 30 days at a time. And you lock in on one and you're so intentional and you do the deep intrinsic work. We've got to be willing to go and do hard better. You and I always talk about that. We've got to look at hard and do it better. We've got to look at pain and not look at it as a bad thing, but look at it as a gift that's going to open it up instead of keep bearing it down and suppressing our emotions.
Okay, I love everything that you just said. And something else that you say a lot is absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. And I think one of the hardest things to do is whenever you are changing your thinking and you're paying this price with a new way of thinking from the goal, you can do it for a day. You can do it for a week. But then you get overridden by, I'm not seeing the results yet. Is this really working? And doubt starts to creep in, thinking like, oh, this isn't what worked for those other people. Maybe it's just not going to work for me, or whatever the thought may be for you. What do you do in that case? Because so many people give up just a little bit too soon.
Well, it's our 3 feet from goal when we make delayed gratification part of our philosophy. See, if you're just going based on what you see, then you're not creating anything of significance. This is where we've got to build. There's two key points that we have to develop, is faith and our imagination. Faith is seeing what you want, regardless of the appearances. It's believing in the incredible. What's the incredible? That any idea that I put in my subconscious mind will be expressed in my results. And you're going to receive what the masses call impossible, that we call standards and expectations. And then imagination, any idea we accept, it goes right into our subjective mind with our imagination. But imagine you're just seeing an enormous life for yourself. That's what we want to practice deliberately. And see ourselves where we want to be. We want to have this enormous picture of ourselves. And that's really setting the tone of your life. See, people think they go to church, that means they have faith. And then the rest of the week, they're not thinking at all. That's not faith. And faith is something we want to operate with every day. Faith is acting accordingly that our desire is already done. That's faith. Faith is knowing that you know that you know that you're world class. That's faith. Faith is believing in the impossible and making it possible. And the evidence of absence is not the absence of evidence. What you're seeing, you don't know what's happening behind the scene. But are you not persistent enough that you give in and then you dig up that seed?
Raj, I'm going to tell a quick story and then we'll get to the action step, but I want to get your input on this. So last year, both of my older kids had this great book that they studied in their classes. Sienna was in pre-K, Frankie was in first grade last year, and they both went through The Magical Yet. And the entire purpose of the book was, kids are learning, they're learning new skills, they're learning to read, they're learning to do math and all these things. I can't do it. This is so frustrating. I can't do it. And then you say, yet. Like, I'm still learning. I can't do it yet. Or the results aren't here yet. But I loved that perspective so much, especially for kids, but for adults too, because so often we all want instant gratification. We all want the Amazon driver to be here in an hour, with our goal in hand. What do you think about that? And then can you also give us an action step for today?
Yeah, I love that. But you look at it, somewhere along the line, as kids, we have great creativity. We believe in the possible. And I have kids that, my daughter's imagination is incredible. She is always picturing something. And so is my son. But I'm always watching my daughter do it. But when we become adults, it's like we stop dreaming. We stop believing in the impossible. And we've got to open up to our creativity. And when you do, it changes the game. If we really understood and leveraged our results and understood how important our faculty of imagination is to bringing it, we're using it all day long anyway. Every idea we accept, we're using that imagination. We want to start stretching beyond our comfort zone. That's thinking. That's thinking in a certain way where we don't even know how it's going to happen. But that's where the results are going to change, and we're going to activate ourselves to really create massive quantum leap after quantum leap. And when you start doing it, quantum leap is going to be your standard. Quantum leap is going to be your expectation. Quantum leap is going to be your identity. But it all starts in thinking, and we've got to get rid of doing the surface work. We've got to stop studying a million things and start studying one thing a million times. We've got to study ourselves, and that's where the massive change happens.
I love that. All right, Raj, give us an action step for today.
Well, what I'd like you to do is start your day with telling yourself the 4 commitments. Number 1, I'm going to conquer myself. For the next 30 days, do this every day. I'm going to conquer myself. So I'm going to get great at accepting and rejecting ideas. You're going to observe your goal and ask yourself, does my goal inspire me? Do I really want it? Do I have a why connected to my goal? I want you to make this day 1 every day, that you do this every day like it's the first day. Number 3, you're not going to let anything on the outside disturb you. You're going to get so good at thinking in a certain way, where you're not thinking by appearances, you're thinking based on how would I think if I achieve my goal. And number 4, you're going to bulletproof yourself to not let the present results dictate how you feel. I want you to do this. And if you start your day for the next 30 days, you're going to have massive change in your thinking patterns.
I love it. All right, Raj, thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for joining us for another episode of the 7-Figure Standard podcast. Hey, if you haven't already, you can actually pre-order Raj's new book, The World-Class Wealth Mindset, right now over on Amazon. It officially comes out on March 12th. So pre-order it right now. You'll receive it on March 12th. It's a book that I know you're going to love. It is a handbook for developing a world-class wealth mindset. If you love this episode, go ahead and leave us a rating and review, share it with your friends and family, and we'll see you next week for another episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7-Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mikey and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachandco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7 Figure Standard.